The day that would change everything began with a tension in the air that neither Elena nor Adrian could ignore, a quiet awareness that the events of the past weeks had shifted their lives in ways that neither had fully acknowledged. And yet, as she moved through her penthouse, checking messages and preparing for the day's engagements, Elena felt an unfamiliar flutter of anticipation, mixed with the lingering fear that danger could still lurk around any corner. And she realized that the presence of Adrian, steady, protective, unwavering, had become not just a comfort, but an integral part of her life, a force she could no longer imagine herself without. Adrian, for his part, had spent the morning reviewing security protocols with meticulous care, ensuring that every potential risk was accounted for, yet his thoughts continually drifted to Elena, to the way her laughter lingered in his mind, the curve of her smile, the subtle strength she displayed even under pressure, and the way he had come to recognize that his duty had evolved beyond mere protection into something far more profound, a connection that neither rules nor reason could restrain. As the day unfolded, a series of minor incidents, a suspicious vehicle parked too long outside, an unknown delivery left at the building entrance, a figure loitering near the lobby, kept Adrian on high alert, each moment reinforcing the fragility of their safety and the necessity of his constant vigilance, while Elena found herself watching him more closely than ever, fascinated by the quiet efficiency with which he moved, the controlled intensity in his gaze, and the subtle ways he anticipated danger before it even manifested. By mid-afternoon, Elena was scheduled to meet with an important investor, and Adrian accompanied her as always, his presence both protective and reassuring, shadowing her movements without interfering, yet the closeness they shared, even in silence, had begun to carry a weight that neither could ignore, a magnetic pull that was at once exhilarating and terrifying, and each subtle touch, a hand brushing against hers as he handed over documents, a guiding arm at a doorway, the brief meeting of eyes, deepened the emotional tension between them. The meeting itself proceeded without incident, yet Elena could feel Adrian's watchful eyes scanning the room, noting every detail, and she found herself oddly comforted by his vigilance, recognizing the way it mirrored the growing intimacy and trust she now felt, a trust that had evolved from fear and dependence into something far more personal, more profound, and increasingly difficult to suppress. As evening approached, an urgent message prompted a change of plans. A threat had been identified nearby, and Adrian immediately orchestrated a secure evacuation for Elena, his movements precise, calm, and authoritative, each action underscoring the depth of his commitment to her safety, while Elena, though apprehensive, felt a strange thrill in the knowledge that he was there, unflinchingly, and that she could rely on him in a way she had never relied on anyone before. The evacuation itself was tense and cinematic, with Elena moving swiftly through shadowed streets under Adrian's protective guidance, rain beginning to fall and slicking the pavement with reflections of city lights, their proximity heightened by necessity, their shared breaths and rapid steps a testament to the connection that had grown between them, and in those fleeting adrenaline-fueled moments, the barriers they had maintained for propriety, duty, and decorum began to crumble entirely. Once they reached a secure location, Adrian insisted she rest, and Elena, exhausted and emotionally raw, allowed herself to lean against him, feeling the full measure of the man who had become her anchor, her protector, and increasingly the one she could not imagine letting go. And in the quiet that followed, words flowed between them that had long been unspoken, confessions wrapped in vulnerability, care, and the subtle acknowledgement of desire that had grown from the first night of their encounter. Adrian, typically reserved and controlled, revealed his own internal struggle, the way his sense of duty had conflicted with his burgeoning feelings for Elena, yet how those very feelings had come to define his days and nights, shaping his every decision and every calculated move. And he admitted, softly, that he had not expected to care as deeply as he did, that she had changed his life in ways he could not have anticipated, and that one night, one touch, one shared danger had shifted everything irreversibly. Elena, Elena, hearing the honesty in his voice, felt her own walls crumble entirely, recognizing that her admiration, trust, and longing for him were no longer emotions to be controlled, but truths to be embraced. And she leaned forward, brushing her hand lightly against his, feeling the warmth, the strength, and the quiet magnetism that had drawn her to him from the beginning. And in that moment, time seemed to suspend itself, the world outside, irrelevant compared to the intensity of what was unfolding between them. The night progressed, with tentative but deliberate steps toward intimacy, their words now interwoven with shared confessions, laughter, and the quiet vulnerability of two hearts acknowledging that the line between professional boundaries and personal connection had vanished, leaving them standing together in a space charged with emotion, trust, and undeniable desire. Outside, the city continued to pulse with life, oblivious to the private drama unfolding in a penthouse sanctuary high above. Yet within, Elena and Adrian explored the delicate balance of passion and restraint, understanding that the journey that had begun with danger and necessity had led them here, to a point where love, protection, and attraction could no longer be separated, where every glance and every touch carried profound significance. As midnight approached, they found themselves alone on the balcony, the city lights twinkling below, the cool night air a contrast to the warmth of proximity and understanding, and Adrian finally allowing the depth of his emotions to surface, reaching out to gently take Elena's hand, drawing her closer, and in that simple, deliberate gesture, both acknowledged the connection that had silently grown, the bond forged in trust, danger, and the slow, irresistible pull of attraction. Elena responded with equal tenderness, leaning into the moment, the tension, the exhilaration, and the promise of what could be. And as they stood together, the final chapter of uncertainty and fear gave way to the first chapter of something profoundly intimate and enduring. A love born not just from circumstance alone, but from courage, shared experiences, and the unspoken recognition that sometimes the most intense protection leads to the deepest hearts intertwining. And in the soft glow of the city lights, both Elena and Adrian knew that their lives had changed forever, that the night had shifted everything, and that the story of protector and protected had evolved into a story of lovers bound by trust, desire, and the certainty that from this moment onward, they would face life together, their hearts no longer divided and their souls irrevocably connected, marking the triumphant conclusion of a journey that began with danger, grew through tension, and culminated in the quiet,